public health threat for the pandemic, but equally, sir, understanding that that personal responsibility required on the public health side is equally important, sir, with respect to the maintaining economic activity in the economy such that we don't have a relapse, sir, with respect to increasing cases locally, and therefore that is absolutely paramount, sir, in respect of us being able to move forward and respond, certainly over the course of the next 6 months. The appropriation bill, sir, is before this chamber, even in the midst of the fact, sir, that we continue from a budgetary perspective, sir, to monitor very carefully the performance of the revenue, the performance of our expenditure, because we are clear, sir, that we have the financing required to take us, certainly, sir, to the end of this financial year very comfortably with respect to the predicted shortfall in revenue. And, sir, I must say to you that having gone through this exercise, it is incumbent upon Barbadians that when we presented, sir, to the social partnership, the context in which we would be operating in this financial year, I am pleased, sir, to report that up until now, we are on track to have, and this is all things equal, sir, we are on track indeed to do better than what we would have initially anticipated. But what is required, sir, what is required, as I said, sir, is that absolute commitment by Barbadians, sir, to continue to follow the public health protocols so that we can do better than that worst case scenario that we anticipated. And therefore, it is critical, sir, that every Barbadian play their part so that the government can focus, sir, on ensuring that we can keep families, sir, in this country whole, sir, that we can have as many businesses stay open, sir, that can employ people, sir, and equally, sir, to maintain a level of social and economic stability, sir, in this country at this very important time. And this is not an easy exercise because there are challenges every day, sir, that we have to respond to. And there are challenges domestically, there are challenges internationally, sir, given a number of negative references that we have received, sir, in recent times from, namely, sir, the European Union. But we are not deterred by that, sir, because we have given the commitment to Barbadians that we will fight for them, sir, and we will continue to ensure that we defend the interests of Barbados, because it is important, sir, especially now in this pandemic, that we understand that a government, sir, has to respond on multiple fronts, and that the response is multifaceted, sir, and therefore, whilst this is a bill, sir, about dollars and cents, the reality, sir, is that the allocation and the reallocation of any expenditure, sir, as we have sought to do, and you would have heard, sir, in the throne speech, a number of initiatives which were designed specifically, sir, to respond to the people of Barbados in terms of the immediate short-term needs, but equally, sir, as we seek to continue with some of the transformational efforts to turn Barbados around. And therefore, it is not simply dollars and cents, as it would say, sir, but equally, it is ensuring that people in this country, sir, and that a number of businesses, small businesses, sir, in this country, medium-sized businesses, and even some large businesses, sir, that they too can stay afloat and continue to employ people, because that is what is required now to ensure that we can maintain a stable economic environment in the context of the pandemic. And so the changes to the structure of government, sir, as demonstrated in this bill, reflect as I said, the reorganizing of the ministries. But as we have done over the last 6 months, sir, we suspended some of the sub-programs and focus more on what we needed to do to keep people safe, sir. We will continue to ensure that we put Barbados in a position, sir, that we can recover as quickly as possible going forward. And therefore, these amendments to the appropriation bill today just reflect, sir, some of the more immediate needs that are required at this particular time. And therefore, in that vein, the government continues, sir, to monitor on a daily basis, sir, with respect to our fiscal performance. We are still very much committed, sir, to ensuring that the government's fundamental response to people, that is as strong as we can deliver, sir, in this environment. And that too, sir, will continue to be monitored, and where resources are required to ramp up, then we will ramp up those resources, sir, to ensure that nobody is left behind in this country. I want to also take this opportunity, sir, to address, very importantly, a matter that seems to have come to the fore, and just very quickly, sir. There seems to be some level of misunderstanding in the public domain, sir, in relation to our debt suspension requests. And let me be very specific in the language that I'm using, sir. You would recall, sir, that under the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program, we committed ourselves, sir, to a 60% debt to GDP ratio by 2033. And we successfully, sir, restructured both our domestic as well as external commercial debt to ensure that we move from 171% when we came into office, sir, to just about 118% just prior to COVID. Now, since the onset of COVID, sir, Barbados, like the rest of the world, sir, we have had to borrow to finance, in a sense, sir, what the shortfall in revenue would be given the commitments that we have made. And the Prime Minister, sir, and as this week, and certainly over the course of the last few weeks, we have been engaged, sir, in a number of multilateral discussions with the IMF, the World Bank, the various institutional lenders, sir, about how we would treat to the debt incurred as it relates to COVID with respect to how debt sustainability is managed and assessed going forward. Because we have been advocating quite strongly, sir, that, and there is consensus with respect to that is building. It is now to ensure that we get the political will of those in the more how should I put it, sir? Those who are richer financially, to get them to agree to the principle of it. And in the same way, sir, that Great Britain would have benefited from the war bonds, which they only just finished repaying, sir, for the rebuilding after the Second World War. We have been advocating very strongly, sir, that the debt that is incurred with respect to COVID, that the workout of that debt, sir, meaning the payback of that debt, should be done over a much longer period, sir, than the existing debt that persons may have already had on their books. And why is that, sir? Because as you would appreciate, in this pandemic, as it has evolved, you have a situation, sir, where households as well as many businesses, sir, are under stress. And therefore, sir, even if the economy was to recover within 2 years, the debt burden that we now hold as a country, and it's not just Barbados, I want to make that point very clearly, that you would find yourself where the economy is back at the same level as it was at the beginning of this year, but your debt level and potential debt service, sir, would be over and above that which the potential carrying capacity could be, which then triggers, sir, potentially some level of financial implosion, not just in Barbados, but certainly there are a number of countries who are not as fiscally strong, in as fiscally strong a position as Barbados, and certainly we have to be concerned equally with respect to that. And therefore, we have been advocating within the context of the multilaterals and even in the context of discussions that we have had with a number of the rating agencies about, one, sir, how do you actually either redefine what debt sustainability is, or find a way, sir, to ring fence or treat very differently the debt that has been incurred with respect to COVID-19, such that over the course of the longest possible period, that debt can be serviced without necessarily creating a debt overhang or stress for economies such as Barbados. And so, in the event that it might have been misinterpreted that Barbados was somehow contemplating new debt restructuring, I can say to this honorable chamber that that is not what is being contemplated, because if there was no COVID this year, sir, we would not have borrowed, we would not have needed to borrow any of the monies that we borrowed already. And equally, sir, a number of the countries, small, medium, and large, globally, equally, sir, have had to respond in ways that nobody anticipated they needed to this year. And therefore, this is a global issue. And therefore, Barbados is leading in these very important discussions, because that will make a difference, sir, to the quality of life that Barbadians will be can expect. Because, as you would appreciate, if after this recovery we have to expend more resources than anticipated servicing that additional debt, then that means, sir, that we cannot allocate those resources to dealing with some of the more structural issues which we were committed to when we entered the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program. And therefore, we will continue those discussions within that space. And therefore, I want to give the public the confidence that what is being contemplated is not in any way associated with what the government is not contemplating a debt restructuring in the nature that would have taken place with respect to the domestic and external debt. But more importantly, sir, understanding that we were not going to borrow these monies this year, but we had to, given the shortfall in revenue and the response that the government has had to respond to, and that this is a global issue, and therefore we are leading within that context to be able to bring about or to avoid, sir, very uncomfortable discussions and potentially, sir, a significant global debt problem, which we certainly have the ability to be able to respond to. And so, sir, these are some of the very complicated things that confronts Barbados, because whilst we are indeed responding to the public health crisis and responding to stimulate as much domestic activity as possible, we equally, sir, have to ensure that down the road that we are putting the things in place today to ensure that we can maintain a sustainable debt trajectory as well as fiscal situation going forward. But let it not be said, sir, that this government has committed itself to respond to whatever confronts us in this pandemic. We have had discussions, sir, with the International Monetary Fund, who equally, sir, understands very clearly how dynamic and this situation has been. And we have been committing that on both sides, that the response with respect to being able to ensure that households, sir, can remain solvent or as solvent as possible, and that as many businesses, sir, can equally remain as solvent as possible, is perhaps, sir, the most critical thing. The most critical thing, because in a small open economy like Barbados, sir, it is absolutely important that these economic agents, sir, which is the very people, sir, that we were elected to represent, the very people, that those people in our constituency, sir, across this country, that over the course of the next 2 years or so, as we navigate a very uncertain evolution of this pandemic, that Barbados will have to chart a course, sir, that allows us and our people and our constituents and their families, sir, and the businesses that they work for or the businesses that they own, sir, that as many of those businesses, as many of our households, sir, can remain as solvent as possible. And the government has given a commitment that we will respond where we need to, working collaboratively, sir, with the financial sector to craft the appropriate responses, sir, to allow us to be able to get through this very stressful time. And therefore, the amendments to the appropriation bills, sir, is just a reflection of the fact that we are faced with a very dynamic set of circumstances, and you will see much more dynamism with respect to the way that the government will be allocating its resources. And therefore, in that vein, sir, we've given a commitment that we will come to this chamber to inform the country, sir, as to any of the significant changes that may occur, and therefore, in so doing, observe a level of transparency, sir, with respect to the conduct of the public and the management of the public finances in this country. That said, sir, today's exercise is relatively straightforward in that there are a number of initiatives that we have given commitments to, and therefore, as we seek to move forward and make the resources available to the ministries, sir, that we have to come to this place, we have to vote the money, sir, we have to give account for the people's money, which is what we are doing. But what is perhaps, sir, very, very critical is that the execution of government's program now in response to one, ensuring that families can remain stable, sir, and that we can get to, sir, as much economic activity in the shortest possible time, that is what is absolutely critical now, sir, in able to respond to the stress, sir, that persons have experienced under over the course of the last 6 months as a result of COVID-19. And this is just one part of that exercise, and you will see, sir, a number of initiatives being rolled out, monies being made available for the execution of said programs, and therefore the Parliament is playing its role, sir, with respect to responding, with respect to the needs of the pandemic. We are giving account to the people in the way that we ought to, and therefore, whilst we are working as quickly as we can to ensure that we can get as much economic activity to create as much jobs as possible, sir, you will see that over the course of the coming weeks, there will be a number of supplementary requests coming to the chamber to be able to give account for that which the government will be responding to. And that is simply, sir, to reflect the fact that we've had to, in a sense, sir, do almost a complete 180, in a sense, with respect to where we started in March when we started the exercise for the appropriations bill. Circumstances have changed, and they will continue to change, sir. But we would give the commitment, sir, that any monies, obviously, that are reallocated with respect to where we are going, naturally, sir, will come to this chamber and be fully ventilated for the benefit of the public, sir. I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
I beg to second that, sir.
No one else is speaking on the bill? Honourable Member for Microsoft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I naturally would wish to support this bill. Sir, I find myself as a Minister of Maritime Affairs and Blue Economy, sir, as I do, sir, amidst the same as all my colleagues, a most difficult time for any of us, sir, a most uncertain time for all of us. A time, sir, where we are forced to reevaluate our approach to the way we govern our ministries, the priorities that we have set for ourselves going forward. Each of us, sir, made a listing of the things we would want to achieve in the year. If ever there was a normal year, 2020, sir, certainly is not it. And therefore, the normal approach to managing our affairs, sir, would not work. And those of us who come to positions of leadership, who do not adapt, sir, as the situation changes, who do not make the necessary changes, sir, so as to be relevant, sir, who do not do the things necessary to make themselves, their ministry, their programs, their policies fit for purpose. Indeed, sir, all we do then is waste time. And it would not be in anybody's interest, sir, to say that we are going to stick to what we originally agreed to do because we had originally agreed to do it. It makes no sense. And if the circumstances now demand, sir, that we make changes, then those of us who are right thinking would have to agree that the changes, sir, are necessary. And I say so, sir, against the context of managing a ministry, sir, that found itself, sir, desperately in need of some love and attention. The ministry, sir, of Maritime Affairs and Blue Economy, sir, is a composite of various different ministries. I had a bit of tourism when I came in, sir, with international shipping. I had a bit of agriculture with fisheries. I have also, sir, under the purview, sir, a bit of environment with coastal zone. There's a bit of here and there. But pulled together, sir, for one strategic purpose, sir. And that between the year 2019 and 2020, sir, we were bringing to fruition a number of things, sir, that made a lot of sense. And we did so because the times demanded that we do so. I now have, sir, a number of changes that I need to make, sir, to be able to address some things that were left unaddressed in this country for years. And when I sat down to do my estimates last year, I did so, sir, we listed the things we wanted to do very clear, very strategically. But COVID, sir, has shook the foundation of things as we know it. It has shook the foundation for us even as MPs, not only as ministers. What we would have gotten away with, sir, in 2018 to 2019, we can't in 2020. We found ourselves, sir, doing things, sir, acting almost as if we were social institutions, trying to meet people, sir, at their needs. If we, at the individual level, sir, had to change to be able to find ourselves fit for purpose and relevant, it is not surprising that the government, too, would have to make the necessary changes to find itself fit for purpose and relevant. And I set out this year, sir, to bring changes to the markets, to bring changes to fisheries as we understood it, sir, and to bring changes, sir, to coastal zone. And all these things, sir, within the context of COVID. When COVID first came to our shores, sir, we were all not sure then going forward what we would be able to do. I am so proud of this government, sir, because we have not compromised on the delivery of services to people in the most difficult of circumstances. And let me explain why I say that. When we came into office, you may recall, sir, I'm pretty sure you do, that people were having conversations in the Caribbean, all over the Caribbean, St. Lucia, Dominica, Grenada. When those economies were growing and becoming more stable, before we came into office, the Barbadian economy was becoming worse and worse. So the former government was making the argument that because of a recession, they found themselves underperforming, while the rest of the Caribbean, sir, was doing better. That made no sense to me. Fast forward, sir, to 2 years under the leadership, sir, of our current Prime Minister, sir, and the support of the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, the leadership of the Ministry of Finance. Remember 2 years ago, everybody around Barbados was doing well, and Barbados was doing terribly. Now, in these circumstances with COVID, sir, Barbados now is performing better than everybody in the region, sir. Well, everybody now is struggling in the face of the world's most serious recession. Barbados finds itself in a position where Barbados could do more than the other countries in the Caribbean could do because of the leadership, sir, of this government in the last 2 years. And it has to be said, sir, because the former government would have you believe that the reason Barbados was suffering was because of the recession. But this is the biggest recession of all times. And Barbados is performing better than the rest of the islands in the Caribbean, sir. It comes down, sir, to leadership. And sir, it comes down to the decisions that we make. And it also came down to the decisions that they made. Sir, I began by saying that I wanted to do some things in the Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Blue Economy. And when COVID came, sir, we were all asked to readjust, to send in some of the money, sir. I felt that I would not be in a position to do some work to the markets. I would not be in a position to do some things for the fishermen. And if ever there is a ministry, sir, that shows the ineptitude of the last government, it must be the ministry responsible for markets and fisheries. Because everything in markets and everything in fisheries, sir, found itself in a state of complete disrepair. The markets are all broken, every one of them. Every single fish market, sir. As a matter of fact, I'm now doing some work to the fish machine, the ice machine in Bridgetown. It hasn't been properly serviced in years. If I were to show you the pictures of the place where we took out the ice machine, the entire infrastructure corroded, which in a way is a microcosm of the state of things under the former government. Everything corroded, sir. But I am so proud of this government, because even in the face of COVID, when I went back to the Prime Minister and to the Cabinet, and I said, even though I know we are facing hard times, these are things that I need to do, sir, and the Cabinet supported it, and I will tell you now, sir, some of the things that we are doing. Some of the changes that we made, not to hurt people, not to hurt the industry, sir, but to bring proper health to the industry, sir, and to support the people, sir, who supported all of us during COVID. You will recall, sir, that during COVID, when almost every other sector was closed, we allowed fishing. We allowed the vendors in the market to operate, sir. And they were so kind to us too, sir, that they gave back. I remember a picture on the front page of them giving to the Ministry of People's Empowerment to give to poor people, sir. And when 1,000 pounds of fish. And when, sir, because when people start hearing that we're making changes, people may start to get the idea that every single change this government has made, sir, is to cut back on spending or to cut back on the delivery of social services. In fact, the opposite is true. And that we strengthened the spending to the social services sector, sir, during COVID, because the government put themselves in a position in 2 years to do what the former government could never have done in forever. And that, sir, is the story that must be told, regardless of what other story is told in this place, this honorable place today, sir. That is the story that must be told. So when you hear people say that we are making changes, you know, the average person may hear that and say, look, the government going to cut. Sir, but it's not been the case. In the markets, for example, sir, you would see, sir, in today's paper, we are now doing some work at Pile Bay. Pile Bay, sir, has a culture of its own. If you visit Pile Bay on a Sunday, sir, it is a place, sir, that is so Barbadian and so well kept. It's almost like the best kept secret in Barbados. The culture, sir, has been able... I was speaking to a fisherman today, my friend Rogi, and... Sorry, sir, for calling your name, but I was speaking to a fisherman today, sir. That's it. And his term, sir, he said Pile Bay has been able to survive even though places like Skeets Bay and Tent Bay have not been able to survive in the same way. But, sir, we are putting $1 million toward renovating Pile Bay. We are going to convert that place, sir, and the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northwest can feel proud, sir, because the former Minister of Finance, who was MP for the area, never did it. And we are going, sir, in this recession, sir, so in the next 6 months, we're going to convert the entire place for the fisher folk. We've already done Spicetown. The Honourable Member for St. Peter is aware. We've done Bridgetown. The Honourable Member for the City is aware. And we've done a lot of work in Oistins. The members for Christchurch are also aware. And we are doing all of that, sir, in the face of the most stringent of circumstances. And it brings a smile to my face, sir, and a smile to my heart, sir, that I could go to the Cabinet of Barbados, and I want to talk about a few things. I could go to the Cabinet of Barbados and say, this is the state of things. I have my Cabinet, sir, my colleagues, support me on these matters, sir, because we know what is important. This is a people-focused government. Don't let anybody tell you different, sir. So we found ourselves, sir, in the situation in the markets where everything was falling apart. Mr. Speaker, sir, when I say everything, I mean everything. Forklifts that got tied up with string, the ice machines broken, every single jetty falling apart, sir. And what hurts the most is that at the same time, the former government took a decision, sir, and bought a hoist that they said was to be used in fishing, sir, for nearly $700,000. And it never used once. It sat in the car park at Fisheries, sir, and it rusted out. For $700,000 rusting out, sir. But I said, sir, even though that is their sin. But I said, sir, I'm not even going to deal with that. It's not political. We asked the makers, sir, to come to Barbados and take a look at this thing. Because if we could salvage it, let us salvage it. And when they came and they took a look at the thing, they said, we cannot use this. The most you could do with this now is use it for parts. So we spent $700,000 to take a machine down and use it as parts. Not we. The former government, sir. $700,000. Such was their disregard for the people in the industry, sir. And I went to Cabinet, sir, because you have to understand the changes that we are making in this context. I went to the Cabinet of Barbados, sir, and they said, I need to make some very important changes in fisheries. Sir, and here's what's happening. At Oystins, Mr. Speaker, sir, when I had a meeting at Oystins, and I'm not talking about a meeting now with my PS and my SAO, I mean a meeting with the fishermen. And the fishermen took me, sir, to a shed in the back. You know the place. And we sat under that shed in Oystins, sir, and we had a conversation. And they told me, Mr. Minister, there are 3 things that we want in fisheries for Oystins. Sir, allow me to call one more name. There's a man there, Belly, known in Oystins, sir. A very, very strong character, if you know what I mean. Fisherman, you know. And him and other people, sir, but we had a conversation under the shed. They said there are 3 things we want from you. You see the ice machine? Because the ice machine, sir, had not been working. We want the ice machine fixed. Sir, the ice machine is fixed. They said to me, Mr. Minister, people talk, but these jetties have not had any repairs for over 2 decades, nearly 3. Sir, I am bringing a paper. I brought a paper, sir, to Cabinet. Cabinet approved the paper, sir. And there's a supplementary before this house, sir, to fix the jetty in Oystins, sir. And we will fix that jetty. We'll start the repairs there this year. They said to me, sir, we want a slipway. And a slipway, sir, the honorable member for Christchurch East asked me to tell people what a slipway is. A slipway, sir, as you know, is what it is, like 2 slabs that actually go into the water. It's like a concrete structure. And you allow the hoist or the crane to go in onto the slipway, sir. The boat comes in, and then they use it to haul out the boat. So it allows the fishermen to haul out their boats. We looked at Oystins, sir, to put one at Oystins, and in conversation with them, sir, we brought in people to look. We found Oystins to be difficult, but I promise we can do one in Oystins. But we agreed at that meeting to do one in Bridgetown. And I have a supplementary here, sir, to do the slipway in Bridgetown too. And then they said to me, when I left there and we went to visit the fishermen in Bridgetown, and I had my meeting now in Bridgetown under a tree with the fishermen. And they said to me, we want to have the jetties in Bridgetown repaired. Because the jetties, sir, if you saw the pictures, sir, complete state of disrepair. I believe, sir, the neglect, sir, is so evident. And I keep saying, sir, if there's ever a manifestation of the neglect of the people by the last government, sir, you just got to visit a fish market. And every single jetty, sir, every single one, there are about 4 or 5, every main ones, piers, every single one, sir, broken. And then, sir, along the dock where the boats actually come in, sir, the fendering completely gone. The men using tires like back in the day. And when the tide is low, the boats go below the tires. And when the tide is high, the boats come and hit against the tires and it destroys the boat. So we're actually hurting the fisher folk, sir. We have here, too, a supplementary, sir, to fix all of those jetties. So the things that the fishermen, not the things that the minister, sir, identified as important, not the things that the cabinet identified as important, the things that the fisher folk determined were important, sir. We are addressing each and every one of them. sir, so that in 2 years, and by the end of our term, sir, 4 or 5 years, 5 years, we would have addressed all of the major concerns of the fishermen in this country, sir. When the former government did not do it in 10 years. And sir, those are some of the changes that we are going to be speaking to. So for example, sir, I have a quotation for Oyston. Sir, the Oyston jetty is going to cost the people of Barbados $1.3 million. And we had in our estimate some money, sir, to do other things, sir. So I want you to understand the changes. We are moving that money now toward, via environment, to do the jetty. Because it is important for us, sir, the fact that we allow the fisher folk to fish during COVID, we allow the markets to be open during COVID, sir, is a reflection of the principled nature of the government. And these, sir, are principled decisions. And therefore, we are moving those funds to the jetty, sir, because it is important for us to allow fishing to continue in Barbados. We cannot be party, sir, to the destruction of one of the oldest practices, professions, sir, in this country, in the world. And then we talk about who cares for whom. Whereas the Barbados Labour Party government, sir, is not the most caring government in Barbados, then none is. Who cares for whom? And if you go, sir, and you take a look, and you know what hurt me the most, sir? And it is slowly changing now. When I visited the markets with the Honourable Member for Christchurch South, when I visited Oyston's market, they said, sir, we said we were going to fix Oyston's. The vendor said that is talk. All your politicians do is talk. And then we fixed the market. I turned around, sir, we visited, sir, we said we were going to do the same thing in Spice, same thing. Bridgetown, same thing. We fixed all of them. I said to the fishermen at the meeting, don't worry, I will go back, sir, and I believe I will get the support of my colleagues, sir, because my colleagues care. And that I will get the support of my colleagues, sir, to be able to fix the markets, the jetty in Oyston's. And the fishermen at Oyston's told me the same thing. All y'all politicians do is talk. Well, we done talking, sir. This is action. And sir, you can see it in every single thing we do. And you can see it, sir, across all of the ministries, sir. You can see it, sir, in every single ministry. Something is happening. I feel now, sir, like the song. And it is so exciting. But, sir, so the jetty is going to cost us $1.3 million. Now, if you were to visit the Oyston's jetty, sir, it is, and you go from slab to slab, sir, it's almost like, you know, when you're young, you're playing hopscotch, you got to jump here, skip, jump, and seriously, such is the state of the disrepair. And if you watch, sir, as they try to move the forklift, or they can't now, but the slabs are so far apart, sir, you kind of, it's like a rough cart road ride, sir. So we're going to fix all of that. All of that, sir. And the funds have been wired, sir, to be able to do that. I want people to understand why it is that there are changes being made. And, sir, we are doing that, sir, in the face of COVID. In the face of COVID. So when people, sir, don't understand the importance of what we did in the first year, 2 years, sir, under the leadership of the Minister of Finance and the 2 deputies, when people don't understand, sir, the reason that Barbados is in a position to do what we're doing now is because Barbados did in the first 2 years under the leadership of the Prime Minister what they did then to give us a little bit of breathing space, sir. So we're going to fix that jetty, sir, for $1.3 million so the people in Oyston's can rest easy, knowing that that work, sir, will be started this year. In Bridgetown, sir, we have a quote, sir, to do the 4 or 5 jetties, sir, for $2.6 million. $2.6 million. And the reason, sir, we have to spend all of this now is because nothing was really spent before. You allow, sir, as you know, sir, if you have a problem, sir, and you leave it there to fester, it gets worse, and it gets worse, and it gets worse. So instead of having to spend $100 for a regular checkup, you're spending $100,000 to try and save your life. We, sir, basically now are trying to save the life of what is happening, sir, in Bridgetown. So it's $2.6 million, sir. We're also wiring money to be able to address that, sir. But I feel like I am so charged up to be able to address all of these problems, sir. And it feels almost like you're trying to do everything at the same time. And you know why, sir? Because we have to do everything at the same time. We inherited, sir, so many problems across every single sector, sir. And people say to all of us, sir, you got to slow down. You're working all the time. You need to take a break. But, sir, you feel like if you take a break, sir, given the magnitude of the task that we inherited, sir, that these situations would continue. We can't take a break until the people of Barbados get a break. And that is why, sir, we are working so hard. And, sir, that is why, sir, if you look at the Bridgetown jetty now, and you see the amount of boats, so you have some piers that you cannot put boats next to them, sir, because they don't have any fendering at all. And if you don't have fendering, you know, putting a boat next to that, sir, you destroy your boat immediately. So we're going to put fendering on all of the jetties, sir. And I mean top class fendering. This is not a conversation a lot of people in the Caribbean having, you know. Because you can't have this conversation at this time. It is not a conversation the rest of the Caribbean is having, sir. I read today's paper, the situation now in St. Lucia. It's not a conversation they can have about spending money on these kinds of things. Sir, and we are not, so sir, this is not one of those cases where you are stopping the bleeding, you know. This is not us going there to plug a hole. This is real transformative work on behalf of the people in a time of COVID. In a time of COVID. And these are the changes that we are making, sir, because we say people matter. And the evidence, sir, is in the things that we do, not necessarily in the things that we say. Sir, I went to a funeral service over the weekend, sir, and the gentleman who preached the sermon made the point, sir, that you reap what you sow in life. In fact, sir, it's one of the better sermons I heard in a minute. But he said, you know, as young people talk in a while. But, sir, the point that was being made, sir, is that you can't, I think he made reference, sir, to some fruit. He said something to the effect that if you plant pawpaw, you can't get soursop. And if you sow the wind, sir, you will reap the whirlwind. And when you look at what happened in the last 10 years, sir, when you sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind. And all of a sudden, sir, we have opposition. Well, they're not even the opposition. We have members of the Democratic Labour Party, sir, who are claiming now to care so much about people, sir, when every single bit of evidence suggests that the contrary is true. The contrary is true. Everything suggests that the opposite is true. And they want us to forget, sir, what has happened in the 10 years that they were in office. All of a sudden, all pillars of virtue. All of a sudden, there is no sin amongst them, sir. But I know what is inside a man will eventually come out. And it is only a matter of time. And I know, sir, that this Barbados Labour Party, sir, what is inside this Labour Party is good. And that too will come out. So you will see it, sir, in the Ministry of Maritime Affairs, sir, as I go about my daily business, sir, trying to make sure that what we do, sir, is for the people. And the other thing that we are doing, sir, quickly, sir, because I don't want to detain the House, I'm sure the honourable member for St. Michael West has gathered his thoughts. My good friend. And huh? Ever want to hear your thoughts?
I don't think so.
Sir, the honourable member, sir, Mr. Speaker, sir, let me stay focused. So the other thing that we are doing in the Bridgetown market, sir, is we're currently constructing, sir, as I said, this slipway. And why is that important? Sir, every year fishermen have to haul out their boats for repairs. You know, there's really no proper place in Barbados to haul out a boat. When we are done, sir, and this is so important, we have now a small slipway at Concept Bay. This is where you can safely haul out your boats. That is in need of repair. We're going to repair that. Count these. Barbados has half of one right now. We're going to repair the one at Concept Bay. That's one. Sir, we're repairing Pal Bay, sir, and installing a slipway in Pal Bay. That is two. Sir, we're doing Bridgetown, sir, and putting in a large functional slipway, sir, that would allow us to haul out the bigger vessels, sir. That is 3. And at the Bridgetown port, that's right. At the Bridgetown port, I can save that for the honorable member there. At the Bridgetown port, sir, we will have another one, that is 4, sir. So I just want the public, sir, to understand some of the work that we are doing in the market and in the Ministry of Maritime Affairs. And to understand, sir, that when you hear that a government is making changes, sir, it is not necessarily anything negative, sir. And that people would try to give the impression, sir, that every time we make adjustments, it is almost like there is a cancer or a canker in the finances of the government. That is not true. But you have to make the adjustments, sir, to deal with the circumstances that you find and the circumstances that emerge over time. And as the circumstances change, sir, you have to change. Because if you are, the difference between leadership, sir, and management is this. If things are good and on a steady course, sir, you need a manager. He could come in, he just has to come to work on time, do the exact same thing, keep the ship steady. A steady hand, sir, a steady hand in easy times is good. But when the road is rocky, or when the ocean is rough, which is more apt for me, when the oceans are rough, sir, a steady hand is not necessarily what you need. Because if you have a steady hand in rough water, sir, you guarantee, sir, to cause a major crash, collapse, sir, capsize the boat. What you need, sir, when times are suspect as these, sir, as somebody, sir, who's going to keep their eyes on the prize and try a thing. But it has to be an informed approach. And sir, that is what we are doing. So when we come to make the changes, sir, it is because we've seen the changes that are happening, sir. And we are adjusting to deal with the circumstances that are before us. So let nobody come, sir, now and try to fool anybody in the public by saying because we are making changes, this and this and this. If we don't make change, failure is not making changes. Failure for us would be to not make changes in the face of COVID, Mr. Speaker, sir. And, sir, those are just my few remarks, sir. I'm sure I'll have the opportunity to say more before the day is done, sir. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is clear to me, that I would never, sir, have trusted any other government, given what I'm hearing from the other side, sir, to be handling the affairs of the people in Barbados, sir. The only government that I would trust now to handle the affairs of the people of Barbados, sir, God knows what he is doing. That is why in these difficult times, sir, it is the 30 of us, sir, 29 now, sir, who occupy this place to allow us, sir, to make the difficult circumstances, sir, to take Barbadians to safety, sir. And I commend the bill that is before the House. And, sir, I wish to offer it my fullest support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honorable Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the bill before this honorable chamber. And I agree with my friend who just spoke. Sir, we came to government and we found what I would describe as a healthy, perhaps the most violent distrust of politicians and all things political. The word of a politician at that point in time meant nothing. When the honorable member was made the Minister for Maritime Affairs and Blue Economy, in the early days, I went with him to the Oystins fish market, sir. And people kept talking about the fact that there was no haul-out facility. They had the complaint about the ice machine, they had the complaint about the jetty, but one of the critical things was that there was no adequate haul-out facility. There's a boatyard next to the Oystins fish market, sir. And what often happened was when boats had to be hauled out at Oystins, the boats would have to go all the way down to Bridgetown to be hauled out at Bridgetown and then put on a trailer and taken all the way back up to Oystins to then be worked upon at Oystins. And this involved the expense, sir, of hauling out in Bridgetown, transportation up the road on a big vehicle, and then when you want to relaunch your boat, you have to take it the same way in reverse. So, sir, this might seem like one of those things that people say it's a job hazard, it's a requirement of your occupation, but it doesn't have to be so. And we are not fishermen. Quite often, it is very difficult to understand where a man is coming from and what is important to him. And so there's a song that says, every man thinks his burden is the heaviest. But for that man, his burden is indeed the heaviest, sir. We listen to the complaints of the oyster fisher folk. I sat down in Silver Sands, sir, at a bar called London Bar, and I was lectured as to the failure of successive governments to address the problems in the market, to treat fishing as a viable and honorable occupation or tradition, sir, or job or vocation. Fishing was looked at one of those default things that other people did. Fish appeared in the fish market, but the average Barbadian gave no thought as to what was involved in getting the fish from the sea to the market, fresh, for you to eat or consume for your food. And I will admit, sir, my exposure to the fish market was going with my father to the fish market to get fish. I remember when flying fish was 30 for $1, sir, 25 for $1. Now, sir, I can't even begin to tell you if you can get a flying fish, how much it costs. But I used to go with my father to the fish market because it was exciting. You saw people there, you saw people with big machetes cutting fish, the smells of it, right? It was all exciting, sir. But that was exciting as a child. The average Barbadian who goes to the fish market, actually, the average Barbadian does not go to the fish market. The fish get from the fish market into a supermarket or a freezer. So many people don't understand the beauty of fresh fish, what the difference between how a fish fresh from the sea tastes as opposed to one that's been frozen for months. Fishing is an important part of not just the livelihood of Barbados, sir, but the tradition of Barbados. Out of bad comes good. And COVID has been a blow for our way of life. It has been a blow to us in how we perceive things. It's been a blow to what we considered actually to be normal. But say A and say B. We had an issue with a lot of overgrown fields in Barbados. If you drive around Barbados now, a lot of the fields that were running to bush and had cow itch now are planted and are in cultivation and production. So Barbadians who had not eaten eddos or sweet potatoes in years, who preferred parboiled rice or the imported boiled corn or whatever else you wanted to use for your starch, Barbadians have now gotten back to what our old people used to eat that enabled them to live to 100 years old. So I made the joke that people were complaining that they put on weight in COVID. In COVID, so I dropped 10 pounds because I cooked for myself. And as I was saying that, sir, I knew that there would be some losing the plot. But, well, you compose yourself, sir. I cooked for myself delicious, nutritious meals. I knew, sir, what went into my pot. I bought it from the market myself. I went to the fish market all the time during COVID, sir, taking precautions, of course.
So you only cook for yourself, though?
No, sir. I cook for myself and my wife, those within my bubble. Sir, but the point I made is I knew what went into every single meal that I had. I had never eaten so much fresh vegetables. I had never eaten so much salad. I had never eaten so much grilled fresh fish. And without doing anything more, just by eating properly, eating what came out of the ground in Barbados, eating what came out of the sea or came from the sea around Barbados. So just simply by regulating my diet to include what my grandmother used to eat and my great-grandmother used to eat, and all the old people say that they eat up to now, the old people that will outlive us. Simply doing that, sir, I was able to drop pounds and I felt better than I have felt in years. The point here, sir, is we must not lose the opportunity that has been presented to us by COVID. Yes, it has crippled our social activities. Yes, it has caused our economy to contract to the point where, sir, that the honorable member who had initially had these great plans for the market had to have his funds sidetracked to be allocated for COVID relief, as we all had. But we are back in a position now where he can complete what it is that he started, where we can actually bring some relief and make a meaningful difference to the salt of the earth on whose backs we have built Barbados. Oistins is a fishing community. Christchurch East is largely a fishing community. Almost every person who lives in Silver Sands has some connection to the sea, has somebody one generation or at most 2 generations above them who made their living from the sea. It is a legitimate part of our Barbadian culture. And we owe it to the people who make their living that way in the same way that we want to build, or that the last government thought it appropriate to build a skyscraper in the middle of Vaucluse Dump, right? To address concerns that they put on the members of the Sanitation Service Authority. The same way that the members, people who work at the Barbados Water Authority, have a brand new spanking state-of-the-art building at great cost, but they have the building, right? At the same way that we look at trying to make those who work in offices comfortable, we must also put the facilities in place to ensure that those who make their living from the land and those who make their living from the sea have everything that they need to properly run their business. Because for them, it is a business and a livelihood. And we as a government have to cover all sectors of Barbados. The Prime Minister, sir, and almost all members of Cabinet have a singular focus to enhance the lives of all Barbadians. We don't deal in sectors. The last government used to say we're the bourgeois party, or we're the party for rich people. But sir, this current government has done more to enrich the lives of the average Barbadian, to uplift the poor Barbadian, to look out for the workers who are disenfranchised, to put social services and social securities in place to help the most vulnerable. Sir, the efforts made at social outreach and social cradling over this period of the pandemic have been nothing short of phenomenal. No government in Barbados has ever had to embark upon a social salvation in the way that the Barbados Labour Party government has had to do so since COVID struck Barbados. And sir, and we can't forget that. It was almost as if, sir, it was a little bit too easy. It was made to look a little bit too easy, that people feel that nothing was actually done. But for those fishermen in Oistins, for those constituents of Christchurch South, for those constituents of Christchurch East that have been for years pleading on it, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Oistins Fish Market now looks a whole lot different than it did a year ago. And that is thanks to the member for St. Michael South. The popped down, broken down stalls, the unsanitary conditions in the fish market, the poor drainage, the poor facilities, all of that has been addressed or is in the process of being addressed. The enhancement to the jetty, sir, and the creation of the slipway and the hollow is simply another step in the honorable member for St. Michael South delivering on his promise to the fisher folk of Barbados. People ask when he was made the Minister of Maritime Affairs and Blue Economy, what was that? You never heard about that before? That's a joke ministry. It's not a joke to the people who depend on it. It's not a joke to the people whose lives have been made better by what he has done. It's not a joke to all of the fishing communities that use Bridgetown, Pile Bay, Concept Bay, Spikestown, and Oistins. It is not a joke to them. And he is delivering in a way, in a focused way, that has never been done before in the history of Barbados. Fishermen are now important again. Fishing is now seen as an honorable profession again. Fishermen don't have to scrunt. They can feel comfortable knowing that the government is looking out for them for their safety. They're trying to get renewable energy on the boats. They're trying to put things in place. The radar is being improved to track boats. Sir, everything that can be done, we are going to try to do. Not just for the fisher folks, but for all Barbadians who play their trade in Barbados and depend on the government to help support them in that trade. So, sir, I am very glad to be here now speaking on this supplementary, sir, this bill. I'm glad because I felt the pain of the minister when the funds that he had allocated for these projects was diverted. It was necessary because Barbados is more than the fishermen. That's true. Barbados is more than fishing communities. They are but one part of it. And when called to divert the funds to save a nation and save a people as a whole and to protect our country for the biggest threat to our existence that we've ever had, none of us could say anything. When the Prime Minister gave an instruction, look at your budgets and turn back in the money. Whatever you can spare, put it back in because the focus now has to be on health. We couldn't say anything. It had to be done. It was a blow to all of us who had these plans, sir, in our ministries, these life-changing plans, sir, these socially changing, socially important initiatives. But you have to look at the bigger picture. We have stabilized in some measure. Health is on its feet. And I wish to commend, sir, the Honorable Minister of Health. Truthfully, sir, when we came into government, I was tackling the issues on the South Coast. I thought to myself, sir, it can't get worse than this. I cannot even imagine stress greater than this. So I looked at my good friend, sir, the Honorable Minister of Health. And sir, he was a good-looking fellow just after election. He's still a good-looking fellow, sir, but he looked tired. I feel his pain. But equally, I could not think of a better, more organized person to handle what it is that we're going through. His cry of no retreat, no surrender has become the rallying call for all of us. He said it one day in cabinet, he said it in a press conference, and we've all taken it up. Barbados has taken up no retreat, no surrender, a la Jeffrey Bostic. Sir, maybe it's his military background. Maybe it's his commitment. Maybe it's a combination of all of them. But I want to thank him for the work that he's done. He's gotten a lot of funds from my former ministry, sir. He's gotten a lot of funds from all of our ministries. But unlike the last administration, we can see where those funds went, and we can see what they went for. And I am comfortable that every cent was well spent, and I thank him. The last thing I'm going to say, sir, is I want to firmly support the Honorable Member for St. Michael South in his quest. I want to tell him, don't give up. It is a lot. It is a lot to change a way of thinking. It's a lot to reestablish an indigenous industry. It's a lot to change the mentality of people, sir. It's a lot to try to get the average Barbadian to see the folk who depend on fishing for a livelihood as being valuable and contributing members of society. But he has turned that around. He has brought our focus back on to marine and things marine. He has rekindled a love in the hearts of children for swimming. He has rekindled and exposed children who would never otherwise have had the chance to the joys of sailing. Sir, and he has delivered on what he can deliver so far with his promises made to the fisher folk of Barbados. So I happily support this bill, sir, and having happily supported it, I wish to tell him, while you were concentrating on St. Michael, as soon as you get the stuff right with the Bridgetown Fishing Terminal, please turn to the left, face the east, come back down to Oystins, and sort out the stuff for the people and the fisher folk of the Oystins Fish Market. Sir, with those few words, I am greatly obliged and happy to support this bill.
I remember St. James Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, it would be remiss of me if I did not, in my capacity as a minister with responsibility for entrepreneurship and small business development in Barbados, say a few words on the matters which have attracted the attention of this House, especially by virtue of the contribution of the last two speakers.
Honourable Member for Christchurch, could you turn off your mic?
I want, Mr. Speaker, sir, to reflect ever so briefly on the fact that I take a sense of pride as I look at the work that is being done by the Honourable Member for St. Michael's South. Sometimes it is very easy to forget that he is a novitiate member of this House. He has approached his stewardship in a ministry that is without precedent in Barbados in a most commendable manner, and has displayed a degree of gravitas. I worked with him and I was minister responsible for tourism, sir, and I found that he readily understood and accepted the importance of issues which were of similar and coterminous interest in the two sectors, so that sustainable tourism, sir, meant a lot for maritime affairs in Barbados, and we worked together on that. Conservation of the coast, sir, means a lot to tourism, obviously, but equally we were able to work together because it means a lot for maritime affairs. Honourable members have to be willing to accept that which sets us apart from the government that we replaced is the fact that our cabinet, I think, has done an excellent job at demonstrating partnership towards the development of the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, speaking more specifically to the contribution that I want to make on this matter, I turn to, again, reflect a little bit on that which was said by the Honourable Member for Christchurch East, because he quite appropriately, I thought, placed within the context of business development that which is happening within the fish markets across this island. And Mr. Speaker, sir, let the record reflect that business facilitation for far too long in Barbados has been treated in a very bastardized way as being something that was relevant only to those people who were of lighter hue and complexion, coming from foreign climes and locations and spending millions and millions of dollars by way of investment. So that this House, under the last administration, would have had repeatedly to endure the utterances of an Attorney General and a Minister of Finance and a Prime Minister, when he cared to speak at all, on matters relating to the performance of the Town Planning Department, as though that was the beginning and end of business facilitation, the Immigration Department, as though that was the end of business facilitation, the Corporate Registry, and the speed with which you get in and out of the Corporate Registry. But you know, Mr. Speaker, sir, black-skinned Barbadian men and women who are earning a living legitimately in business have to be facilitated too. And what this particular debate has taken us to is the point where we needed to be a long time ago, to reflect on the fact that a fisherman who has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in a vessel can have that vessel severely damaged if the fendering that he must pull up alongside of is not there. That, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is a challenge in the structure of this economy, where even as I speak to you today, availability for insurance for some of those persons who are plying their trade legitimately, earning a living legitimately as a business. Fishermen in Christchurch and in St. James, where I represent, Mr. Speaker, sir, are known not to have one vessel alone, sometimes 2 and 3. People have formed little partnerships and own more than that in some instances. And Mr. Speaker, sir, when you hear that you can't get insurance for the boat, it is a nonsense. But it happens in Barbados. And we have, as a government now, to confront the issue of how we can make sure that we so transform and restructure the way in which financing is available to small business people in this country, that we make them equal before In fact, we make them equal at the bar of public opinion and in the eyes of the country. And Mr. Speaker, it's a very serious thing. We have to begin now to talk to Barbadians about secured transactions in the context of a collateral registry, understanding the need to monetize the process of secured transactions, having laws in this country which secure transactions, and develop a collateral registry in Barbados so that we can have an appropriate level of impact on the quest for economic development. Collateral, sir, is the oxygen. And let me say it again. Collateral, Mr. Speaker, sir, is the oxygen for free-flowing credit in any economy. It is a foolishness to suggest that small fishermen, small plumbers, small contractors and artisans who have a wealth of resources by way of assets. Small farmers, Mr. Speaker, sir, have their crops. There are small businesses in Barbados which have inventory. There's almost every business in this country, especially now in these difficult financial circumstances, has accounts receivable. But Mr. Speaker, sir, there's nowhere in this land of ours that you can secure financial assistance and loans against your accounts receivable and the inventory that you have. Or in the case that we are talking about more specifically, sir, the fact that you own 2 fishing boats. Because as I made the point, the insurance industry is not going to hear you in many cases because the boat too old, though the boat has value. And again, we in this country have to stop cherry picking who could get insurance for a vessel and who can't. Because there are several people who may be of a different complexion in Barbados, sir, come from a different part of the island. Their address reads Ridge, or terrace loop, or gardens, as opposed to land or village. And Mr. Speaker, sir, they are not told that their boat is too old. So it's a reality that we have to get right. And these things, sir, stand in the way of people, as I say, we deprive small businesses of the essential oxygen that is necessary for them to succeed. So the securitization of transactions, Mr. Speaker, sir, is vitally important. It is also important because it reduces the potential of losses, sir, which can be faced by people who are prepared to lend. So it works both ways. And if we are to be truthful to ourselves about what is happening right now in Barbados, there are a lot of transactions which are backed by a new car. Car that's 2 years old or 3 years old, you get a little money against that. And Mr. Speaker, sir, in many instances, if you talk to the banking community, they will tell you that their fear is that it is not properly securitized. And therefore, if there's a bad weather and the car is lost, there is a risk. Mr. Speaker, sir, if we do not get these things right, then we do not bring the level of equity that we need either for the people who are developing their businesses and trying to penetrate markets and grow, nor on the other side of the coin do we give the level of security to those persons who we're asking to lend money to develop businesses in Barbados. We have locked ourselves into a box where traditionally we've approached this matter. Land that can qualify. So if you've got some land, then you go to the bank and you can get a loan. If you have a building that you own, well, then you can go to the bank and you can get a loan, Mr. Speaker, sir. But there has to be legislation now that must assist us in the registering and the governing of transactions where we can use movable assets as security, so that we empower those smaller players amongst us who own the movable assets. And that is why I use this opportunity in this very important debate about fishing in Barbados, because that industry has not only fed and developed thousands of Barbadian families in this country, but it has, much like motor vehicle transportation, whether it be the taxis, whether it be the ZRs, Mr. Speaker, sir, it has been a mechanism which has empowered black Barbadian people to make little money about here, when otherwise doors would have been shut in their faces. But what do they have? In many instances, they are not land-rich entrepreneurs. In most instances, Mr. Speaker, sir, they are not land-rich entrepreneurs. In most instances, Mr. Speaker, sir, because they're not land-rich, they can't place a second mortgage or a third mortgage on buildings that they own, because you can't, if you don't own the land, you can't own the building. Mr. Speaker, sir, but what they have is the asset. They got the motor vehicle, they got the fishing boat, they have the inventory, they got the equipment. All of these movables, sir, must now be placed at the disposal of this community and leveraged so as to make us put us in a position where there is additional access to financial oxygen and economic opportunity in Barbados. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wanted to make that point because small and medium enterprises are the backbone of economies around the developing world. And when you start to analyze this, and again, I'm going to make this point politically, because even though he passed and gone away since 2010, and he may now be reduced just to ashes and dust, there was a prime minister who sat in this house under the Democratic Labour Party, who used to poo-poo contributions of this nature as saying, oh, you're intellectualizing politics. That's how the honourable member then for St. John felt. Because anytime you came to explain or sought to explain the struggle of working class people in a post-colonial developing economy or underdeveloped economy, it was a time to poo-poo and make sport at the plight. And Mr. Speaker, sir, the stench of that still reeks in my nostrils, to be honest with you. The stench of that still reeks in my nostrils. Because, Mr. Speaker, sir, if you want us to intellectualize it, then the International Finance Corporation of the World Bank, the private sector arm of the World Bank, study on small and medium enterprise in this part of the world is compelling reading. In fact, it should be compulsory reading, Mr. Speaker, sir. Because what they have made clear is that there is approximately 12% of the total credit leverage in the Caribbean and Latin America that goes to small and medium enterprise. Yet the vast majority of enterprise in Caribbean and Latin America are small and medium enterprise. So that the access to finance is a legitimate concern. And it is a concern, sir, that we have to fix now. Once having said all that, let me say what the solution is. Called this ministry that I've now been given the privilege to lead is going to be coming to this house very soon and to the cabinet with the proposal for the collateral registry. Because we have to go there. In the same way, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the Ministry of Agriculture has finally been able, under the watchful eye of the Honourable Member for St. Philip South, to be able to come to cabinet with a paper. I signed off my ministry's comments on it the other day, so I know for a fact that the paper exists. A paper on trade facilitation, specifically looking at sanitary and phytosanitary measures. And what are they? Those are the things, sir, which will allow our fishermen now, not just to sell fish in Barbados, but to start to export. Because since 2008, we signed a contract with the European Union, an economic partnership agreement, sir, which was supposed to allow us to sell all the fish that we could produce that we didn't want to eat but here to the European Union. But you know you can't sell one? Not one. Because, Mr. Speaker, sir, we don't have the necessary sanitary and phytosanitary rules in place and the capacity to make sure that that which we sell we can verify in terms of its quality. We know our fish good. We eat it every day. But men up there are going to say to you, well, how do I know? That's what they would tell the minister. And therefore, they put a legitimate barrier to our ability to export. And for 10 painful years, between 2008 and 2018, the Democratic Labour Party allowed that barrier to exist while coming to Parliament and going through a pappy show, talking about how you got to find a way to earn foreign exchange. But if we had to earn foreign exchange, was putting the legislation in place, as we are now going to be coming here to do very shortly, Mr. Speaker, sir. And to enfranchise working class black people in Barbados, in the parish of Christchurch, in the parish of St. John, in the parish of St. Philip, in the parish of St. James, in the parish of St. Michael, all around the coast we got fishermen though, and fish markets, sir. But what did you have to have? You needed to have this beginning of the transformation of the markets in terms of their structure, like what we are seeing in Christchurch. And there's more to be done. The steel, the wood got to be replaced by the steel. Like you can go in Hansard and find about 10 speeches I've given on this matter. At least. Estimates after estimates in the Senate, estimates after the country. I preached to them, sir. I even told them, go take a little tour over to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where they don't have a fishing fleet like what Barbados got. They ain't got no ice boats and things like how we have, sir. But they took up the wood and put in the steel, wash down basins. They put in provisions so that you have a certain minimum temperature so you don't go from room temperature or hot sun temperature back to cold storage again, because that is what gives the Europeans and the Americans, others, a chance to say, oh, no, we ain't so sure that meat ain't spoiled when it changes temperature. It ain't got no flies and blood and thing all about the place because you're keeping it in certain pristine condition, Mr. Speaker, sir. And that is what we have to bring to the process. And that's why the Minister of Finance is the best person to lead this, because he, more than anybody else, got to put the money available. It is a developmental process. You don't sit in that ministry to say that you look good or that you sound good. You sit in that ministry to help shape, from a bird's eye view, the developmental path of the economy of Barbados. And that, Mr. Speaker, sir, is what the issue has to be about. Now, it is unfortunate, perhaps, that you have to speak in these terms, and in this tone, but, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is about the empowerment of working class people that sent us to this parliament and the preservation of their ability. But larger than even that, it is about the enfranchisement of these people so that they can be industrialists and exporters and earners of foreign exchange in their own right. And if ever it mattered before, it should matter to us now, if it never mattered before, because we have seen that the dependence we've had on tourism brought an entire economy to bended knee. But even as the tourism economy, base economy, crumbled, you know that every Barbadian was going to a fish market and getting some fish. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, if we were exporting it or able to export it, we would not have a Minister of Finance who came to this parliament with a head full of hair, but now can hardly find any, and it's not because of a low haircut. It's dropping out before our eyes. And that is because he has to struggle to say, where will the foreign exchange come from? The foreign exchange opportunities are there, but we have to lock them in, sir. We have to lock in the foreign exchange opportunities. And at the bottom of the ladder, that is what hurts me about this matter, that we got thousands of people in the fishing community that could be doing the value added, getting into the industry, the packaging, the exportation. But Mr. Speaker, in tourism, because there are people who want to experience a fish market, experience in tourism, they want to come in a market and learn how to scale fish. They want to learn how to bone fish. I had this discussion with my friend, the honorable member, who is Minister of Maritime Affairs. These are opportunities, sir, that we cannot afford to let pass us by. And the fact is, sir, that it helps us to transform people who were looked down on by the well-to-do in this society and put them in a position where they can be uplifted to be what they are, equals. It is for that reason that there is, on the silver dollar of Barbados, the coat of arms on one side, and when you turn it, you see the flying fish. It is for that reason, sir. Let us take pride in industry and take pride in the industry that can be given to this country via that particular mechanism of fishing and fisheries. Mr. Speaker, sir, I had promised not to speak very long on this matter, but I wanted to make that intervention on behalf of the community that I have to represent. I am obliged to you, sir.
Honourable Member for St. Michael and Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, too, rise to join in supporting this matter before the House, because, as you would appreciate, it constitutes a change to my ministry since water resources was added to the ministry. But Mr. Speaker, contained in the estimates and the revision to the heads will be a number of programs designed to execute programs across Barbados. And I'm very happy, Mr. Speaker, to stand before you in this August chamber to say that notwithstanding what the pandemic has caused us, that this government continues to execute works on behalf of the people of Barbados. One such project, Mr. Speaker, is the commencement of works on Highway 1. And as a result of the Highway 1 rehabilitation program, for the first time in about 20 years, those who have to traverse that road, the highway, on their way home to conduct business, Mr. Speaker, in a very short period of time, will be realizing the benefits of their government hard at work improving the infrastructure of Barbados. Mr. Speaker, consistent with our practice and our very pragmatic approach, we engage the residents and representatives of business in a virtual town hall meeting because obviously this the pandemic that we're experiencing globally. And we had 2 virtual town hall meetings, one October the 7th and the other one yesterday. And as a result of those virtual town hall meetings, we were able to explain to residents and business representatives and other persons interested in that area the proposed works that we are planning to undertake commencing next week. From the junction of the Frank Walker roundabout at the bottom of the University Hill, all the way going to Seaview in St. James. And Mr. Speaker, I hasten to add that that would constitute phase 1 of Highway 1, because, you know, we are planning, obviously, perhaps next year, to execute phase 2, which will commence from Seaview and go all the way to 6 Mens. But, Mr. Speaker, specifically as it relates to phase 1 and the rehabilitation program, what we're proposing to do there is that for a very long time, we've had major disruptions as it relates to the supply of water because of, as you appreciate, mains that have been there for in excess of 100 years. And that will always cause us a problem, Mr. Speaker, because based on the practice of cutting across the roads and so on, you will find yourself in a situation where the road would have been destabilized. And it's now reached a point where we have to start thinking and planning for the future of Barbados. And that this Progressive Barbados Labour Party government has undertaken perhaps another visionary step in ensuring on this occasion that when we execute the works on Highway 1 in the first phase, that we will be replacing 100-year-old mains on both sides of the road, Mr. Speaker, the western and the eastern side. And Mr. Speaker, permit me to just detail some of the works that we intend to undertake in respect of Highway 1. We are going to be relaying a new 12-inch main that will be on the western, as we refer to it, on the seaside of the road. We are going to be relaying a 6-inch main on the land side. We are also going to be installing a new gas main, thanks to the National Petroleum Corporation. And flow cables and other utility companies will, on this occasion, also install their mains there. And we also have, for the first time on the Highway 1, first phase, we will have a duct system effectively for the Barbados Light and Power Company to facilitate future connectivity with underground means. So in other words, what this visionary Barbados Labour Party government intends to do is to, over time, on that stretch of highway, to move away from the practice of having power lines above ground and lay them underground. Now, this will not happen immediately, Mr. Speaker, because the light and power will take time to connect to entities to the underground facility. But we are making provision for underground ducts on that side, the land side of the road. Mr. Speaker, but we go further. And we are going to replace 6 culverts with larger ones, and we are going to improve the drainage system on that course. We are going to improve and make good existing footpaths. We are going to ensure, Mr. Speaker, for the first time, that we have manhole covers that are flush or level with the highway. We are also going, Mr. Speaker, to improve existing signage on that road, and that we, through our ministry's depot, we will improve the signage, and where there's none, Mr. Speaker, we will create new ones. But we are also, Mr. Speaker, and it involves significant trenching works. But when we've completed the trenching works, we are going to mill and pave Highway 1 in that first phase. Mr. Speaker, and in the interest of transparency, because this Barbados Labour Party and certainly my ministry will have nothing to hide, we've gone on record, sir, and we have announced that we are engaging experienced contractors in trenching operations along the first phase on Highway 1. And what we've sought to do, Mr. Speaker, is also to ensure that we divided the highway into 5 sections, because we understand the economic value of the land on that site and the contribution to Barbados economy. And what we'll be doing, sir, is that we have 5 contractors, and we have, like I said, we have identified 5 sections. And I'll repeat them, Mr. Speaker, for your benefit. From the Frank Ware roundabout going to Jordan's Road, 1,600 meters, sir. Cow Williams will be engaged there. From Jordan to Holders Hill, some 1,800 meters, Arthur's Construction. From Holders to Sandy Lane, 900 meters, Jose and Jose. From Sandy Lane to Molyneux, Ajax. And from Molyneux to Seaview, Infra. And Mr. Speaker, those 5 entities will be involved in trenching works, Mr. Speaker. The overall project, sir, is estimated to cost some 15.2 million, including trenching and paving, and to be funded, as we know, from the Consolidated Fund. I've already said to you, sir, that we have to do these works because we find ourselves in a position where the infrastructure is not what it ought to be, and we have to restore the infrastructure of Barbados. If we wish to compete, if we wish to keep our people happy, if we wish to have businesses going, including small businesses going on the stretch, Mr. Speaker, we have to build out our infrastructure, not only on Highway 1, sir, but we have to build out our infrastructure across Barbados. But because it is one of the most heavily trafficked roads on the island, Mr. Speaker, a decision was taken to execute the works there on this time, at this time. Mr. Speaker, we are going to ensure that there is a traffic management plan. And to that end, sir, during the virtual town hall meetings, we had the officials of the ministry, including the chief technical officer, the acting deputy chief technical officer, and other members of the traffic management department, talk the country and certainly residents and representatives of businesses through the plan there, the traffic management plan. We are going to commence works from 6 p.m. until 6 a.m. Some contractors perhaps may start a bit earlier. But I want to make this point, Mr. Speaker, that at all times during the construction and the rehabilitation works on Highway 1, that there will be traffic flow for PSVs, transport board vehicles, SSA trucks, route taxis, and all others will be allowed to flow, to drive through, sir, this area. Mr. Speaker, in everything we do, we have a duty to communicate. And one of the steps we took, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that we have effective communication going throughout the project and for the duration of the project, I might. We have also agreed that we will hire persons from within the community, 2 persons, to ensure that we maintain dialogue and constant communication with residents. It's a new initiative, sir, and we refer to this as our community liaison officer role. And that will happen. We've also invited the Member of Parliament for the area, the member for St. James Central, and he was present at both town hall meetings. And we also took him on tour of the area to explain what we were doing there about 3 weeks ago. What will happen, sir, in respect of the roadworks there, is that at all times, the road will be drivable. Because what we are going to do, sir, is that as they trench between 80 and 100 meters per day, they will also backfill at the conclusion of the trenching works. So, and if, for whatever reason, there is any open trenches, they have metal plates, and the contractors have agreed that they will secure the area. The plan, sir, is an ambitious one. We know and we have heard that before I got to the ministry, it will take probably maybe plus 3 months. I understand the importance of productivity. I understand the importance of commerce. I understand the challenges that these matters will pose to residents through disruption and access to their homes. And Mr. Speaker, I have made it very clear. You know, I come from the private sector, so I am a little perhaps anxious to get things done. But I've made it clear, sir, that notwithstanding that originally the plan was to take maybe 3 to 4 months, that I would wish to undertake an ambitious project and to ensure that works are completed no later than mid-December, Mr. Speaker. It is an ambitious plan, Mr. Speaker. I am an ambitious man, I must admit. But I also know that the contractors have indicated to us that they too need work and that they are prepared to work, Mr. Speaker, around the clock. But we will not disrupt people's lives and rest, sir, to the extreme. We will do it in a manner, sir, that will facilitate heavy trenching works during a specific period and then later works to compact, sir, the trenches at later hours because we have to be mindful of rest periods, sir. But I have said to them, and I met with them, and I said to them, we need to get the works done by mid-December. They have committed, albeit that is an ambitious program, that they are willing and they are going to cooperate and they are prepared to make this a reality, sir. I accept, sir, that we are also in what you might refer to as the wet period. And therefore, due to inclement weather, we could experience some challenges. That notwithstanding, sir, I believe, sir, that the contractors will do what they have to do. They have calculated based on the number of days, based on the meters that they have to excavate. And I believe, sir, it is doable. But like I said, we will maintain communication with the residents. We will ensure that we do this in a very orderly manner, notwithstanding the temporary disruptions, because it is absolutely necessary that we get to work on restoring Barbados's infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, there may be some temporary disruption of services. It is possible because when you're undertaking works, it is likely. But what we will have, sir, is that we will have all the utility companies on standby to ensure that we work through these problems, Mr. Speaker. And I also want to make the point, and for the avoidance of doubt, Mr. Speaker, that one of the things I ensured that we accomplished was that we had the utilities companies warrant to the ministry that they had all available supplies ready for the project. In other words, sir, that there be no stop and starting. That when we start the project, we will continue the project and we won't have to wait for any supply of materials, Mr. Speaker. And the utilities companies also warranted that to the ministry. They've also warranted, sir, that they will have rapid response teams on the spot to address issues, to be on standby, to address issues as they occur. I also want to say, sir, that we met with the residents, we met with the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association, and like I said, we did so because we understand the value of communicating with the public, especially when we're undertaking major projects such as Phase 1 of Highway 1. Mr. Speaker, you may ask, why are we executing works on this project at this time? We all know that there's a lull in tourism activity across the globe, and Barbados has not escaped. As a result of that lull, sir, we've taken advantage of the situation to commence works, and that is why we are trying. If we didn't have, sir, a lull in tourism activity, and particularly on the West Coast, sir, there's no way that we perhaps will be able to commence work at this time. But notwithstanding that there's a current lull, Mr. Speaker, if we can complete the works by mid-December, and as to be expected, business will pick up, at least we know, sir, that when business returns to the numbers that we're accustomed to in the tourism sector, we will have infrastructure that works for the businesses and residents on the coastline. We will have mains that are laid, and we will have roads that are paved, Mr. Speaker. I know the occupancy levels because, you know, Mr. Speaker, I spent some time on the west coast of Barbados, so I will be familiar with some of the occupancy projections, even though I no longer serve in an executive capacity on the coast. But I also took that into consideration. And my ministry worked with all the available information to plan this program. I will admit that there will be some noise as a result of the works, as I alluded to earlier, but at the end of the day, I give the public the assurance we will work through these matters. I also give the public the assurance, Mr. Speaker, that on a fortnightly basis, as we have done, for example, in other projects under my ministry's control, we will, as ministers, including the honourable member for St. John, that we will tour fortnightly, and we will also update the country as necessary on the road project. Mr. Speaker, I can go on and on, sir. So, and I have not come here to start to tell you about some works that we intend to do that will transform areas in the Scotland district, Mr. Speaker, to an extent that Barbadians have never seen before. But I will not say it yet, sir, because I may have an opportunity to come back maybe in the second week, perhaps. Sir, but the Barbados Labour Party, notwithstanding a decline in revenue, sir, and not only the government, sir, because the businesses are experiencing declines as a result of the pandemic, but the current Barbados Labour Party government, notwithstanding revenue decline, sir, committed $15 million to this highway project. And we are about, sir, to embark on a major road program, sir, for communities in the Scotland district. And when I say the Scotland district, Mr. Speaker, what are we referring to? Referring to St. John, St. Joseph, St. Andrew, and St. Thomas, Mr. Speaker. And at a later date, sir, we are going to announce the cost of that, the projected cost of that program, the number of roads that we are going to execute under that program, Mr. Speaker. And not only roads, there will be bridges too, Mr. Speaker. But we are going to transform the Scotland district, sir. And I have not disclosed yet to the Parliament that we are currently negotiating with another major institution for another $100 million to facilitate road works in Barbados, Mr. Speaker. Lot of work to be done in a very short period of time, Mr. Speaker. But I'm happy to tell you, sir, that when I met with the contractors expressed a willingness to work. They said we would work morning, noon, and night if necessary, because we didn't have work for a very long time. And what will this $15 million plus all the other roadworks programs that we are going to announce in very short time? It is about putting people back to work, Mr. Speaker. When you sit down, you hear people complain that for years didn't have any business and that they had to lay off their staff, Mr. Speaker. But at the current Barbados Labour Party government, notwithstanding declining COVID revenues and revenues in a COVID period, Mr. Speaker, can make substantial investment in the infrastructure network of Barbados. It is about putting people back to work, Mr. Speaker. And when you, Mr. Speaker, you have the opportunity, sir, and you can walk for a good exercise like me, sir, and you walk the highway, you will see what I'm referring to, sir, when works commence down there. But this is about putting people to work. When a construction company told me that they had to lay off staff and that they had workers on short time, and that as a result of the projects that we are announcing, sir, that their people will return to full-time work and in some instances earn overtime. Mr. Speaker, we must be happy for that because we came to public office to help people and to transition the lives of people, Mr. Speaker. That is what the Barbados Labour Party is about. Sir, so I wouldn't go on and on, but I'll say this. We also have community roles to address. And I have it in hand, sir. I have it in hand. And I know that I've only been on the job perhaps 9 weeks. Feels like 9 years, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I give this House, and I give you, sir, this Honorable Chamber, the assurance that as long as I have responsibility for public works, we will get it done. And I have a different approach to how we do business, Mr. Speaker. A completely different approach. Mr. Speaker, we have to get things done, and we have to get things done in short order because when we get things done, Mr. Speaker, we are satisfying the needs of the people of Barbados, Mr. Speaker, and that has to be, Mr. Speaker, it is about service delivery, sir. It is about ensuring that we help the people who are in dire need of assistance. So we are going to discuss, sir, at the opportune time, sir, the other roadworks, Mr. Speaker, because there will be occasion to come back here for other supplementaries. But not only here, sir, because there's some programs, sir, we will have to announce outside of this chamber, Mr. Speaker, and we will do so. And I have not even gone on to tell you, Mr. Speaker, that we will also very shortly be embarking on the upgrade of the South Coast Sewage Plant. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to give you, sir, in the House the assurance and the public at large that there are substantial works in the pipeline and that this government is committed perhaps to the most ambitious capital expenditure program across the government that we've seen or will come to know, sir, in many, many years. So I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that as I support the resolution before the chamber, that I want to assure you, sir, because you too would like some roads too, sir. And you will get them. Believe you me, you will get them, sir. Because like you, sir, not like you so much, but I come from the back bench. And coming from the back bench, I know the struggle, sir. I know the struggle, sir. But I give the House the assurance that we are going to go to work and we are going to fix the roads, Mr. Speaker. And we will have those roads done in short time. I could give you, Mr. Speaker, I walk with a list of roads, Mr. Speaker, that I know we have to do. I also walk with a list of roads, Mr. Speaker, that we executed too, sir. But we will deal with that at a later date. But I want to assure the country, I want to assure residents, especially residents in communities, that we are going to look after your plight as a caring government, sir. I want to give them the assurance. And I want to give them the assurance that I will work hard on their behalf to ensure we improve the road infrastructure in Barbados. We are improving the water supply. We are doing a lot of works, Mr. Speaker. I've gone on record. We've talked about Vineyard. We've talked about what we're doing in the north, Mr. Speaker. There's a lot of money that the government of Barbados committed to to improve water supply in the country, including reservoirs, sir. And there are many things, sir. Some of them started before I joined the ministry 9 months ago. But there are other things that we have to put in place, Mr. Speaker, to ensure we maintain a consistent supply of water. So it's not only roads, Mr. Speaker. There's also improvements to ensure we have a consistent supply of water. But there are also going to be changes, Mr. Speaker, in the ministry to allow for more efficient use of resources and to also, and more importantly, Mr. Speaker, improve service delivery, sir. We have to improve service delivery, and that is what we're working on. And I want to, Mr. Speaker, to thank the officials in the ministry, as well to thank all of those members of staff who work very hard in the ministry to ensure that they accomplish the stated objectives. I know since I got to the ministry, Mr. Speaker, that I've pushed them at a pace. Perhaps they would wish that I probably wasn't there. But we are pushing on, and we are pushing on. And we have to do so, because we have a lot of works, Mr. Speaker. We spent a lot of time as a government trying to fix the economy to get it to a stage where we could execute works. So in short time, we had to correct the fiscal imbalance. We had to, redirect the course of Barbados, and that took some planning and some time. Now, Mr. Speaker, is the time for us to execute our programs, and this government, Mr. Speaker, led by the honourable member for St. Michael North East, Mr. Speaker, has assured us, and she's given us her support and blessings, Mr. Speaker, and the required financial support in the ministry to execute the programs. So we've had to fix and stabilize the economy in the first year plus, almost 2 years, and now, Mr. Speaker, it is our turn to execute the project works within the ministry. And I give all members in the parliament, my assurance that we are going to improve the infrastructure in Barbados to ensure that their constituents, like my constituents, continue to benefit from the infrastructure works that are required. And on that note, Mr. Speaker, I'm obliged.
All member Christchurch West Central.
I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to start by saying that I wholeheartedly, unreservedly, unequivocally support this bill before the House, but I want to take off my vocal shackles to support the supplementary, of course, that will be allocated to the Member of Parliament for St. Michael South, the Minister responsible for Maritime Affairs and the Blue Economy. Knowing, of course, that in a fulsome way, what happens in the hydrosphere, as I call it, the Blue Economy, directly affects what happens in the ministry that I'm responsible for, the lithosphere. And if you look at all the spheres in a circular way, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is the troposphere and the cryosphere. But invariably, Mr. Speaker, global warming as we know it, global warming, which is seeing an increase in temperatures, and I heard the minister, the Member of Parliament for Christchurch East spoke about the issues as it relates to weather patterns and stuff. But global warming and the vagaries thereof has presented us with increase in temperature, sometimes over 0.17 degrees Celsius one day, and flash flooding the next. That is the idiosyncrasy that we are faced with. And as Minister responsible for the environment, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have to be mindful that there must be a symbiosis between this environment and the blue economy in such a way that we are able to mitigate those challenges so that they won't have the swells in the ocean that would affect the fishermen, so that we won't have the destruction of the coral and the reefs as we know it, which would affect our fish stock. Because there is no discussion about fishing that would be meaningful if our fish stock and our fish population continue to die. And that is what we have to guard ourselves against. So that's why I told you, Mr. Speaker, earlier, that I have to lend my voice to the discussion. Because for me, fishing, as a fisherman once told me in Ice Things, And that is just bordering that's the sister constituency. The good constituency of Christchurch West Central. A fisherman told me that fishing is not an escape from life, Mr. Speaker, and I want every person in earshot to hear this quote. He said fishing is not an escape from life. It is a part thereof. It is a part thereof. And it's circular here. What he's saying is true. Fishing industry has been a part of the Barbadian folklore. The Oyster Stone, Pearl Bay, and all the other fishing villages as we know them. It is a part of our psyche. It has supported our families, our friends, our neighbors. Fishing has a holistic effect in the entire country. And I want to say that, although I am not too good a swimmer, I must admit, I would not even go as far as to say that I can swim as good as two former ministers, the affluent ministers who swim in effluent. I would not even go as far as say that. But I understand that I came from an environment that is surrounded, and Barbados is surrounded by the sea. Some people call it the Caribbean Sea, I mean, I call it the Atlantic Ocean. Based on your geographical scope and your visual acuity, it is based on how you see things, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I want to say today that what the Member of Parliament for St. Michael South is doing across Barbados. When there was 10 lost years, according to the Member of Parliament for St. Peter, 10 lost delusional years under the Democratic Labour Party as it relates to the fisher folk in the Berenda Coast market and markets across Barbados, and what this minister has been doing in terms of bringing a sense of ownership, enfranchisement, and empowerment to those fishermen is something short of amazing. It is amazing. I say so without apology. He has worked with every single sinew and the entire ministry to ensure that those fishermen have a space, a tangible stake in the fishing industry in Barbados. And I heard the Member of Parliament for James Central spoke about enfranchising our fishermen. And as Minister of the micro, small, and business enterprise, he said that he was willing to walk the walk with the fishermen, not only talk the talk. That is not the type of leadership that we have brought to this country in governance. Be leading by example and being involved in every single sphere of development in this country. We will not walk. And I've heard the Member of Parliament for St. Michael South said on many occasions, we will not walk in front of the fishermen because they may not follow. We may not walk behind because they may not lead. He will walk at their side because he understands the importance of having a partnership with these fishermen. That is what he said. That's what he said. Partnership is about economic enfranchisement. Partnership is about social development. It's about you cannot talk about a sustainable economy and sustainability unless you have small people, the ordinary people, at the core. And they said that this government, certainly under the astute leadership of the Prime Minister, will not leave one single person behind in their quest as it relates to opening the door so their future can walk in before them. That is what we are about, giving persons opportunity across this country. And not only giving fishermen the opportunity, but allowing them to operate in an environment. And if you saw what has happened, the transformation at Oysterstown, I call it that now. I'm proud to say that it can be called Oysterstown because of the commercial activity and the enterprise and the excitement in Oysterstown. I ain't ashamed to say. What I saw there, the transformation over the last couple of months in terms of the phytosanitary conditions that has been brought to Oysterstown because of the hard work of this minister. I am saying I cannot imagine, Mr. Speaker, what took place over the last decade. It was a lost generation of fishermen over the last decade. I say so without apology. Fishermen can now sell their product, market it, and put it to the international arena. Because we have provided those conditions for the fishermen. We have given that space where they feel that their product is world class. And we said as a governor, when we came to office, that we are going to create world-class citizens. And the minister responsible for maritime affairs and blue economy is creating and has created world-time and world-class fishermen. That is what we say. And he has done it not by talking the talk. He has done it by walking the walk and doing the do for the fishermen in this country and the fisher folk and the blue economy. He has brought a new industry as it relates to seafarers, the boating industry. And I must tell you, and I want to thank the Argentine ambassador. I want to wish him all the best in his future endeavors. But certainly he has worked in partnership with me as former Minister of Youth and the Minister of Maritime Affairs, understanding full well that 65% of our fisheries, 65% of our fisheries is seen as awful or silage. And in a circle of Barbados, because that's what we are talking, how we can recirculate everything in Barbados for profit and for full purchase. And he said to us, let me bring the machine, let me give you the technical assistance. And we are going to start training young persons to be able, in a circular way, to take that 65% of the fish that would normally go to the dump because it's space limited, Mr. Speaker, sir, and put it for agricultural usage in the agriculture industry and in the feeding for livestock. That is the type of discussion. And so the program took life under the leadership of the minister responsible for maritime affairs, the man who represents St. Michael South and will continue to do so because he understands the importance of giving small, ordinary Barbadians the opportunity. That's what he understands. And that is why he has worked so hard. Look across Barbados. Look across Barbados. And you will see the development in every single sphere in terms of the fishing industry. And when you talk about slipways, this is things that is not rocket science. You don't need to be out in the stratosphere to understand what a slipway is and how important it is for the boats when you got abnormal swells. And this, as I said before, these are the vagaries of our climate change and our natural disasters, which prior to COVID has been on the lips and the mouths of every single person in the world when it relates to our existential threats. Global warming, abnormal swells. And so it only takes a matter of time before a fisherman can get his boat out. You hear about the disaster, the crime, the aberration as it relates to the crane that was left there to rotten. They said that it was made out of steel, but there was no steel in there. So nobody ain't take the time. Nobody take the time to ensure that it became a profitable piece of equipment that could go to the usage and redound to the benefits of the people in Silver Hill, God Hill. And they could call them, we got a good fisherman there too. And they want to say special good afternoon there to Mr. Rogie himself, man, a good fisherman in my constituency. Now, I've trained a lot of young men in the fishing industry because the Minister of the Maritime Affairs said that training must become an important part of the conversation. We are young fellas all across Christchurch. Christchurch East, always men came from there too, but young fishermen came from Christchurch East as well. Oh, Christchurch South, Christchurch West, you name it. And then you could talk about the epicenter, which is Christchurch West Central, of course. I would not deny that. But I'm saying that young persons from these surrounding constituencies, this geographical space known as Christchurch, must have the opportunity to build boats, build nets, must have an opportunity to see the fishing industry as an industry that can feed themselves, their family, and take care of the unborn child. It must be seen as a future industry to carry them as global citizens in this world. And that's what we are working to do. Because we said as a government, we are going to produce global citizens. And the fishing industry can carry Barbadians all across the world, representing this small little country. And that is what we are doing. We are producing persons with the talents and the skills to carry this country. Oh, I call it world class, man. I hear that from a world class representative of St. Thomas. World class. And that's what we are saying as a country. Let us build on that which has been the backbone of our country for the years. Let us build up that which we are good at. And that's all we are saying to the fisher folk. It is time for you to recognize your worth after 10 lost years. 10 lost years. Let us recognize the importance of having you as an important cog in Barbados. That's all we are saying. And I'm happy today to lend my voice to tell all those people in Gold Hill and Silver Hill, Lodge Road and surrounding areas of Christchurch, Maxwell, Kendall Hill, Sergeant's Village of Vauxhall, all the areas, that your voice will be heard, and I will be that conduit to take it all across Barbados as it relates to enfranchising you and every single Barbadian. And I want to say to the minister that he is doing a fantastic job. Don't be sidetracked. Don't be sidetracked, but I'm a minister responsible for the environment. I have to use these terms by the atmospheric noises, man. Don't be sidetracked by them. Stay focused. Take focus because you are in the right fulcrum. You are the right fulcrum. The blue economy, the fisher folk, the hydrosphere, you name it. Make sure that the ordinary persons in Barbados, that they have a tangible stake. And that's all we are saying as a government. They must be able to own their own industry. And I know a lot of fellas will see the blue economy and may get blue bags. But you know what, blue sometimes is the only thing that saves them for the night. But that's another story. That's another story. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to say to you that one of the things that I would like, I'm not speaking of you, Mr. Speaker, sir. You are a sexagenarian. And name and number and everything. You don't have a problem at all. I want to say to you, Mr. Speaker, that I am happy that the ice machine, imagine it. You got fisher folk, you got a fishing industry, you got boats, you got jetties, you got fish, and you got ice. Huh? Mr. Speaker, sir, you got everything else except the one thing that will maintain the fish and stock persons from being sick in this country. Huh? Stop the bacteria from affecting the fish. You must have certain standards, and that is what the minister is doing. I don't think, Mr. Speaker, that you will walk in here and sit down pretending that which you sit down in the chair and there is nothing before you. You can't have every single thing. You want the most important thing that you need. You don't have ice machine down for 10 years. 10 years. And nobody find it, the gumption, the fortitude to say, and even the mental acumen to say that the level of delusion have no boundaries. The level of delusion have no boundaries. That is as simple as that. Because I could not believe a responsible government, a responsible one, that cares about people and ordinary people would allow something like this to happen. I want, last point before I go, Mr. Speaker, and this is, I don't know how the minister will seek to deal with this issue, but there's an issue about 6 or 7 years ago, a youngster died on the jetty. I mean, young people for years. They see the jetty as a part of their Sunday exercise. They see as part of their activities. They go on the jetties when they're there, they fish on the jetties. They're speaking about jetties too. You probably represented a couple there too that went there for other things. But the jetty has always been a place. The jetty has always been a place for activities. All types of activities happen on the jetties. Young people, they go on the jetties, Mr. Speaker. They fish on the jetties, they dive off the jetties. And unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, they had a young incident, and I want to pay homage to the young man's family today. The great-grandson of Berenda Costimarca is named after him, who dived off a Sunday or so, and many boats, because they were positioned, anchored on the jetties, because when the boats coming off and loading fish, they use the jetties as well And once he died down, apparently the boat came and scratched him his head and he died. And I would like the minister responsible for maritime affairs and the blue economy certainly to let us regulate the boats coming in, let us get some signage so that young persons can enjoy their pastime with diving in the jetty. When you were diving in the jetty, when you were a youngster coming up, something wrong. Even if you're diving, you splash your head, body splash and thing, and people laugh. That is all part of the fun and excitement, going fishing and all sorts of things. That is it. What I'm saying is that the unfortunate incident, I'm saying that we need to regulate, put something in place, allocate an area, so that that pastime can stay the test of time, where young persons can enjoy themselves diving all the day, because that's what they like to do. And we must enjoy young persons. You must allow young persons the free spirit. And my partner says he's doing it too, sometimes. But what I'm saying is that it was an unfortunate incident, and we have to look to curtail it. We have to put some order in place where that part of the jetty, a certain area is allocated for that sort of pastime and that sort of activity from our young people, because they are going to do it if you tell them do it, don't do it, or not. It is part of our maladaptive patterns of behaviors. We do things sometimes by learned behavior, experience. A regular passage, experience. Sometimes it's a good experience, sometimes it's a bad one, Mr. Speaker, but we do it all nonetheless. It's all part of living and learning. And I'm saying that to the minister, that I know he will put a system in place where we regulate or put a special area for the jetties. But the thing about it is that he wanting, for sure, is that he will allow, for once in a lifetime, the opportunity for those youngsters to walk across the jetty because the state of disrepair that is in. I won't even care why my goats down there. The honest truth. It is in a horrible state as it is. And it has been in a horrible state for the last 10 years. More than 10 years, but for the last 10 years, nobody was responsible or saw it fit to put some attention to the jetties in this country. There was no attention or detail being put towards the markets, the sprucing up of the markets, and certainly what has been happening in the hydrosphere. And I'm saying today that I want to thank the minister. He is doing a fantastic job. And I want to stretch those young people, those young aspiring fishermen. I want you to continue to stretch their mind with a new experience so that they will always rise to the end of the horizon. And I don't want them to ever see the horizon as the line that separates themselves from the rest of the world, or the line that separates sea and sand, or sea and the sky. I want them to see it as a new frontier. A new frontier where they can live the Bajan dream all across the world as fisherfolk, as fishermen, as businessmen. And I want to thank you and applaud you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm obliged.
Honourable member for St. Michael South Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to say a few words in support of this Appropriation Amendment Bill 2020, and in particular the schedule wherein the member for St. Michael South and the member for St. Michael West Central are bringing before us certain supplementary provisions to give effect to works that they have identified. Given that so many members have given particular support to the maritime issues, I will choose to say a few words in support of the works contemplated by the ministry for which the member for St. Michael West Central has some responsibility. And I want to do so, sir, in the context of the way in which governments are meant to operate, the orderly way in which this Barbados Labour Party administration does its business, and to say, sir, that we have a certain approach and one that went missing during the previous administration. The business of government is not by whim and fancy or by whimsy. This government operates according to something called a public sector investment program. There is something called, in the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Investment, for which I have responsibility, a public investment unit. And sir, the most important subcommittee of the cabinet is a planning and priorities committee. And those are a lot of P's, that's a lot of information. But the public sector investment program, the PSIP, I repeat it, I say it a lot when I speak to the people of Barbados, because I want to emphasize that this is the logical and orderly and structured way in which government must carry out its capital works program. It is by plan, it is by planning, and it is by the establishment of priorities. And so my ministry is responsible for identifying the financing for this public sector investment program. It is responsible for helping the cabinet and the subcommittee, that subcommittee of cabinet, the Planning and Priorities Committee, and colleague ministers, responsible for helping to prioritize the works, the roads, the bridges, the drainage issues, the housing, the major capital works that this government has identified. It is a process. It is one that the last administration seemed to let fall by the wayside, sir. When we came to service in June 2018, we had to reestablish the Planning and Priorities Committee. I'm not so sure by what structure the cabinet then was doing its business. But we had to reestablish the PPC because it is the way in which we are able to allocate resources and plan the execution of major capital projects. And so I say all that, sir, to say that when we come to this chamber and vote monies and go through this process of the appropriation bill and the estimates, that it is because we have done the work to prioritize how and when and wherefore we will do roads, according to what schedule, according to some prioritization. Similarly, for matters related to transport, to works, to water, to housing. That is how the government does its business. It is a process of prioritization. It is not that somebody just jumped up one day and decided that these things should be done, except where there is an emergency or there's a critical issue to which we have to quickly respond. And sir, you know, I sat today and I heard members muching up the Minister in Finance. But in my estimation, in my experience, men are not always the best at figuring out who it is they are to much up. So I say that to, you know, I don't know, but I've always heard love who love you, Mr. Speaker. And so I'm just seeking to highlight that there is a balance with respect to finance and economic affairs. A balance wherein the consolidated fund finances some things and the financing for the PSIP is done on the other side, mainly through multilateral, bilateral, and other funding sources. And women always forgive, perhaps when they should not. But sir, I say all that because I also want to draw attention to the matter of the reserves and the fact that the foreign reserves held at the central bank right now are the highest that they have ever been. Also has a lot to do with how we have planned our priorities. You heard the member for Christchurch Essential make reference to our engagement with multilaterals, which is also something that is led through the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Investment. It is not just about building the foreign reserves as we had to in order to maintain the peg, in order to maintain the stability of our currency. And, you know, people will always have an opinion about what is the source of the foreign reserves, what is propping up the foreign reserves, how we've been able to get them there. And as I always say, while we've been able to negotiate for concessional lending, which the last administration could not even do because they did not have the credibility to do it, the fact is that if we had not, can you imagine if over the last 2 years we had not done the work with the multilateral community to be able to negotiate these agreements? Can you imagine where we would be with respect to COVID? If we had not prepared the pitch, could you imagine how fast we would have been bowled out following this pandemic? And so while the foreign reserves are not at all simply the result of borrowing and are in fact reflecting also significant confidence and trust and economic activity in the international business sector, the point is that these are the types of areas of planning and preparation that have allowed us to do what we need to do, that have allowed us now to be able to earmark some of those reserves, to be able to address some of the issues that need to be addressed in the Ministry of Transport Works and Water Resources, to be able to earmark some of those resources, to be able to build the infrastructure that is going to mean that when the tourism sector returns, that when the other sectors that we are preparing for, medicinal cannabis, renewable energy, and others, are in full flight, that we have the kind of enabling environment that means that they can take off. We have the kind of roads and broadband connection and all of the other parts of the environment in which people want to do business. That means that people want to come here. That means that Barbados is a place where people can live their best lives. But sir, the public sector investment program is not just about the list of projects that the government is executing. And when we came to service, we found, regrettably, that was the kind of policy guidance that had been given by the last administration. That it is just a matter of writing down a list of projects that people managed to get signed, and that would be your PSIP. And we said, no, but that is no way to run a mobby shop, far less a whole country. What you need to do is to come together as a cabinet, identify based on our engagement with people, what are the things that are going to make people's lives better, and make a plan. And so in the government's public sector investment program, you will find that the majority of it we've already identified financing for, but some of it are pipeline projects based on the priorities of the country that we've identified. And this is the reason that we've been able to identify financing for the Scotland District Stabilization and Road Repair Program. This is an area of the country, 1/7 of this country, sir, that long went neglected, and that is an issue that is not just about making sure that people can move around and do their business and have roads in the areas in which they live and work, but also making sure that, quite simply, people are safe, that the area is stabilized, because this is an area where we see shifting, where we see physical movement, where we know that it's prone to land slippage. And we have to make sure that we do the important work of securing the area, of maintaining its biodiversity, because the Scotland District is also one of those areas that potentially, and already is, whether it is so recognized by the international community or not, an area of heritage and biodiversity that we want to maintain and we want to have internationally recognized. But it doesn't make sense having it internationally recognized, sir, if when people walk down the hill, they're going to slide to the bottom. And so we took the decision in this framework of the Planning and Priorities Committee, in the framework of this government's public sector investment program, to be able to identify the financing and make sure that we have an executable plan. And the member for St. Joseph was extremely instrumental in making sure we had that agreement settled. But to make sure that the people who occupy 1/7 of this country are able to feel secure and able to go about their business as Barbadians. So the Constitution River Flood Mitigation Project that I had the pleasure to launch yesterday is also a part of that PSIP. And, you know, I have to say that I don't often like to speak at the beginning. I like to show the evidence at the end. This is a project that will take 18 months. It is about making sure that we have proper drainage in the area, that we alleviate the flooding issues that have been going on in that area for the residents of Halls Road and the surrounding communities, that we make sure that the water is properly aerated and we address water quality so that there aren't the mosquitoes and the other vermin that have been plaguing the residents. There's also going to be, sir, a small craft birthing facility there on the site by Queen's Park, because if anybody passes that area, you may notice that from time to time on the phase 2 side, leading up to Queen's Park, that some of the youngsters in the area often have their little kayaks and their little vessels, and they go down the canal, because in doing these works, what we've also been able to do, what we will also be able to do, is to beautify the area and to make it a place where people can recreate. What we've been able to add to that, again within the framework of the PSIP, is, and with the collaboration of the member for St. George South and his ministry, what we've been able to add to that is on the embankment, a part of the building blocks program, which will be dedicated to what we're calling the Halls Road Commercial Village. So that by the time this area is complete, that those entrepreneurs who have been trying a thing in the area can now do so with some legitimacy, can now make sure that they can get up in the morning and bathe and dress and powder and feel proud that they are going to a space where they can know that they are part of a vibrant private sector in this country. I eschew the notion, sir, that the private sector, the definition of a private sector in Barbados is about men and women in jackets and in air-conditioned offices. We know that that's not what it is about. It is about people who get up to earn an honest dollar based on things they enjoy, based on things they want to deliver to their communities. And we're happy that as a part of this program, we'll be able to add some value in that regard. The Spike Storm Flood Mitigation Project up at Salt Pond, sir, is the next phase of that, the next step in that, a separate project, where we're also going to be able to address flooding and drainage issues. But I want, before I sit, sir, to say something brief about our approach to capital works in this COVID-19 environment. In an environment where a private sector has so slowed down, has so had to slow down, that we've seen almost a complete cessation of any activity at all, that is one in which a government, a public sector has to step forward. And that is what we've done, sir. You heard it in the throne speech delivered some weeks ago. We have had to step forward with a $40 million capital works program. That program that we estimate would be able to create around 2,000 jobs or so has nothing to do then with the BEST program, the Barbados Employment and Sustainable Transformation Program, largely around the tourism sector, where we anticipate that 6,000 or so workers in the tourism sector and related sectors will be able to be re-engaged in their previous employment. And that another 2,000 workers, sir, will be able to find work based on the greening and the technology and the digitalization part of that BEST program. This is what happens, sir, when you plan in a framework instead of waking up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night and making policy on that basis, as we saw happen under the last administration. And so a lot of what the member for Christchurch, for St. Michael West Central was able to explain to you and to start to share with you is based on that planning. It's based on the fact that we are, along with that ministry, the Public Investment Unit of the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Investment is in negotiations with the Latin American Bank for a $100 million Barbados dollar road program, which will also add to the works that the minister has come to this chamber for approval of certain allocations to continue with. We've also been able to enter negotiations with another entity with respect to upgrades in the area of housing. Because one of the things that we've identified is the fact that in order to be able to talk about roof stabilization and climate resilience and disaster management, people's homes themselves have to be in a state that is sound and secure for them to inhabit. It doesn't make sense having a roof that can't go on top of anything, of any sound structure. And so while as part of the Fisheries program, we're focusing on making sure that people's entire housing structure is sound, we are also, in collaboration with the Ministry of Housing, negotiating to make sure that we can do these kinds of works. So, sir, I wanted to give a bit of that perspective because I wanted to assure Barbadians through you that while you may see a road done today and another done tomorrow, and you might wonder, but cheese on when they're getting crossed by me, be assured that this is part of a plan, that ministries come together based on what members understand are the needs of their constituents, not just in the constituencies they are sent here to represent, but in the sectors that they also represent. I don't know anybody who has met with more fisher folk than the member for St. Michael South. Because we have to listen to the constituencies that we represent in both respects, both as members sent here to do a job and as ministers who had the good fortune to be appointed to do work on behalf of the people of this country. So, sir, with those words, I simply want to support this bill and to say to Barbadians through you that their government is working with a plan and that we want to make sure that we bring everybody along and that we continue to hear from the Barbadians and those who live here who continue to be affected by these trying times. I'm obliged to you.
I'm member for Christchurch, East Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I really want to thank honorable members for their very spirited contributions to what ordinarily would be just an accounting matter. But in the circumstances that we face as a country, sir, I think the members of the public and taxpayers of this country would appreciate that we have committed ourselves, sir, to transforming Barbados in its own right, but in a COVID-19 environment, sir, where we look globally and recognize that there seems to be a lack of leadership, sir, that this government intends to lead Barbados out of this very dark hour, and that we will commit the resources of this country to ensure that ordinary Barbadians, sir, in these circumstances will derive the benefit with respect to not just a stabilization effort, but with respect to being able to engage meaningfully, sir, in the recovery that we anticipate will come. And it means, sir, that we have to be very focused And as the honorable member for St. Michael's South Central just indicated, sorry, our philosophy, sir, is to ensure that the different constituencies and as members of parliament, whilst we are elected on the basis of geography, when we come to this place, sir, and we take on the various portfolios that we hold, then we have to ensure that in order to keep Barbados, sir, stable, in order to keep our communities stable, there are linkages, sir, between and across the various communities and demographics and industries, sir, in this country that we have to pay particular attention to, such that the employment of somebody in Bridgetown, sir, may very well depend on what happens in St. John. And therefore, to the extent that we are making investments, sir, to ensure that whether it's at Concept Bay in the context of the Ministry of Maritime Affairs, whether it is the roadworks contemplated to deal with the issues in the Scotland district, sir, that there's a connection, sir, with all of us across this country. And we know what is required to be done because we have engaged in a wide range of consultations, sir, with the people, with the stakeholders, sir, and we have crafted what we believe, sir, is a response that, once executed, that will redound to the benefit of ordinary Barbadians. And so, sir, I am very proud to be here today to conclude, to wrap up this debate. But equally, sir, I just wanted to reiterate that the works as contemplated between the Ministry of Transport and Works and Water Resources, and that, sir, with respect to the Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Blue Economy, that we will be making an amendment to the existing bill, sir, to the schedule to reflect the supplementary requests, which are actually on resolution number 6 at the moment, with respect to dealing with the specific works that are there. And again, sir, that just speaks to the fact that as we go through this process of refocusing and repurposing, sir, our public expenditure for this financial year, that our ability, sir, to be flexible in the way that we administer the people's business, and to be able to ensure that even as we go through this very tough time, that the government will always be aware that this is a dynamic situation. Things can turn at a moment's notice, and we will utilize, sir, all of the various tools that we have at our capability. And if there's need, sir, to come to this chamber to be able to give legislative authority for new tools, we will do so in order to be able to respond swiftly, sir, to this pandemic. And so, sir, these, let me thank again honorable members for their contributions. And this is very important, and I want to urge the public of Barbados, sir, to continue, certainly to follow the protocols with respect to those issued by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. COVID-19 is real, sir. It will be around for some time, but Barbados has to manage, sir, in a very concerted way, the risk associated with being able to keep this economy open. And we believe that so long as we are able to effectively monitor the protocols which are rolled up with the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and that with the participation, the active participation, sir, of every single Barbadian and resident that we have welcomed here to ride out this pandemic, that so long as we continue to do that, sir, we know that we will keep this Barbados economy ticking along until the rest of the world, sir, has figured out that they need to demonstrate the same discipline that we as Barbadians, sir, have continued to demonstrate under the guidance, sir, of the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And so, sir, I want to commend this bill to the chamber and beg to move, sir, that this bill be read a second time.
Questions that the aforementioned bill be read a second time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself in committee for further consideration of this bill.
The question is that the Speaker, do not leave the chair, and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
This House is now in committee.
Madam Chair, we're going to go to the schedule first. Head 46. Just give me a moment. Yes, ma'am. Head 46, Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Blue Economy, in the amount of $16,979,613.
As indicated previously, the amendment before the chamber from the existing bill reflects the supplementary request with respect to the Ministry of Maritime Affairs to deal specifically with the repairs of the jetty at Bridgetown Fish Market, as well as provision for the slipway at the Bridgetown Fishing Harbour, in addition to the installation of buoys along the corridors for water sport vessels. And so I beg to move that head 46 stand part as amended.
Question is that head 46, stand par as amended. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Ministry of Transport, Works and Water Resources, in the amount of $89,717,377.
Madam Chair, again, as indicated previously, the sums being requested in addition to what is in the existing bill relates to rehabilitation works for Highway 1, as well as in terms of the junction from Frank Royal Roundabout to Seaview in St. James, which is $15,281,656, as well as an additional amount for $1.58 million, which is to provide funding for the vehicle registration database, which is part of the electronic vehicle registration system, which the ministry is in the process of being able to execute. And therefore, the total amount, as indicated, I beg to move then that head 81 stand part as amended.
Question is that head 81 stand part with amendment. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Oh, you mean a number of things? Madam Chair, and just for further clarity, you would appreciate that with the reorganization of a number of ministries across, due to the reshuffle, obviously they were in the supplementary, it would have referred to head 80 specifically as it relates to MTW. A new head has been created in respect to head 81 to reflect those changes. In addition to that, heads 91, 92, and 93 are new to the schedule given the reorganization from the previous structure of government. But those have no immediate changes with respect to the previous allocations. It's just the creation of a new head. You would also note that the ministry, the funding associated with culture has been now amalgamated under the PMO, and therefore that reflects those sums that were previously there. In addition, head 34, the Ministry of Finance, the Office of the Supervisor of Insurance, Insolvency, now rests within that ministry, and therefore no new appropriation, but just a shifting of that specific department within there. All told, Madam Chair, it means that the total amount being requested under the appropriation bill is now $1,597,527,727. And therefore, I beg to move that the schedule be amended and stand part.
Question is that the schedule be amended and stand par. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 1, ma'am.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that clause 1 stand part.
Question is that clause 1 stand par. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All honorable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 2.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that clause 2 stand part as amended.
Question is that clause 2 stand par as amended. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Madam Madam Chair, I beg to move that you do not report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one bill as amended in committee.
The question is that I do not report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one bill as amended. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All honorable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman of the committee has reported the passing of one bill as amended.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read a third time.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be read a third time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now cited and passed as the Appropriation Amendment Act 2020.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be passed and so cited. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited. Honorable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, we've come to the end of today's sit-in. I beg to move that the sit-in be adjourned until the 27th of October at 10 a.m.
The question is that this honorable chamber be adjourned until the 27th day of October at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This honorable chamber stands adjourned until the 27th day of October at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.